Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Jordan with Edwards Consulting and #Clockedin podcast. And I'm excited for a special guest today. We have segment number 6 of the Health is Wealth podcast. And Singh Kim is here again. We've talked about a variety of subjects, but one subject we have not spoken about, and it's about sleep. It's something that we do for at least a quarter of our life, maybe a third of our life, depending how much sleep you're really getting. But we'll dive into that today. Sang, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. Like I said, I'm dealing with this atrial fibrillation. I'm a little on edge about it. However, I've got a deeper sense of confidence, knowing that I do have access to lots of experts that can help me to solve for my own personal AFib, right? So it's yeah, yeah. So I don't have as much energy, but I'm very happy to be here chatting about health as well. So yeah,
Absolutely. And we'll make this a super impactful time because as Sang mentioned, he has access to some of the best experts in the world through his network. Not everybody does. So that's why we're doing this Health is Wealth and talking about sleep today. So saying, when did you start looking into this sleep dynamic, start thinking about it, start realizing how it affects you? Because most people are just like, hey, I got 8 hours, I'm good. Is that
yeah,
good enough nowadays? Like, how do you think about that?
yeah. You know what? It's probably I would say I started getting deeper into my own health, and I can tell you it was January 2010
Oh
when I
wow.
started to go to San Diego for a seminar and conference called Values-Based Financial Planning, um, with Bell Backrack. So, when you go to California, there's all this woo-woo and this health. And I picked up yoga. I saw a functional medicine doctor. So I started to go a lot deeper. So that's 14 years ago, right? So, that was when I was 43,
Oh
right?
wow.
And I just thought I'm a healthy guy, but I want to stay healthy, right?
Yes.
So it was more of that, and being in California, people are a little bit more healthy there, with all the sun, all the food, access to fresh food, etc.
100%. I even noticed that I was telling Sang before, I actually got back from a trip where me and Madison were traveling for 7 weeks. And I'm actually releasing a podcast about that soon. If that one comes out or this one comes out first, I'm not sure. But the food in Europe and the walkability that people were having just had a much bigger exercise dynamic where it was just the lifestyle was different.
Mm-hmm.
And it
Yeah,
led
that's
to like a
great.
healthier living. Yeah, you start having fresh
Yeah.
foods, like things are just a healthier lifestyle. So what does sleep have to do with a healthy lifestyle, and where does sleep even play a part in this?
Yeah, you know as well as I do, Jordan, when you don't get a good night's sleep, you feel like crap the next day, you're on edge, and you're maybe you've got some extra cravings, right? Maybe you are thirstier, or it's just you don't feel 100%, right? So this notion of you can sleep when you're dead, that's a lot of BS, right? And and just from my review of literature, from studying a number of different sleep experts, like most of them are going to agree that most people will need anywhere from 6 to 8 hours ish of sleep. And depending on your chronotype, some people don't need as much sleep, and that could be genetically driven, right? Some people need a little bit more sleep, but I think the experts agree, 6 to 8 hours of good sleep and restful sleep. So that means you're going to have light sleep, you're going to have that deep sleep, and then you're going to have that REM sleep, or that rapid eye movement sleep, right? So, all three different parts of the sleep cycle are important for our recovery, so that, when we're sleeping, actually, especially when we get into deep sleep, you know, we get rid of the beta amyloid plaque that builds up in our brain, which is like black tar.
Oh
You can go
wow.
watch a video on YouTube of beta amyloid plaque. And for people that don't get enough deep sleep, they don't get rid of this waste product. And this
Really?
waste product from the brain is this black tar, and it looks like black tar. So, and if you don't get rid of it, well, guess what? Your brain does not function well with black tar, right? So you're going to have brain issues, whether if it's in the form of dementia, or you're just not functioning properly, right? That's an important function. I mean, it's so important for cell recovery, metabolism, just to go through memory as well.
Yes.
We need to get into these sleep cycles to retain what we learned as well, right? So there's so many different aspects of it, but we all know that we need a certain amount of sleep, right? So how do we
Yeah.
optimize that?
Yeah, 100%. And the thing is, I was thinking about this because when we were trying to figure out a topic in the beginning, it's like, why would we talk about sleep? And I sat there and I'm like, this is the only thing we should be talking about. It's the only thing that people do every single day, regardless. That
Yeah,
means if you're lazy, if you're active, if you're an athlete, if you're in
yeah,
anything.
yeah,
And the crazy part is that we don't, like, I had someone in my group talk about investing in a mattress, and I was like, oh, they're like, it's not that big of a deal. I'm like, no, it's a massive deal. It's a huge deal. Because if you're
yes,
not relaxed and can't relax yourself, like,
yeah,
what are you doing? And people
yeah,
spend more on car payments than they do their mattress. Like,
yeah, yeah, absolutely. You think about what's a good night's sleep worth, financially. Well, if you don't get a good night's sleep and you get a sales meeting and you're trying to retain a brand new client, well, that could be $1 million deal, right?
yeah,
And you're not 100%.
yeah,
You had a restless sleep, so you're not as sharp. Maybe you forgot something, right? Like, let's go down to the root cause of some of these issues that we have as human beings. If someone's really irritable, well, maybe they have sleep apnea. They need to get a sleep test, right? And they're,
I-
you, you know,
yeah. And how does that even work? Like, what is sleep apnea or what? Like, I am like I know a little bit about sleep, but not that much. And that's why I like bringing you on
yeah.
once a month just to learn about all these different areas. So what leads to sleep apnea and how does someone get it? Like what is it exactly?
Yeah, essentially, there's different causes of sleep apnea, but what they do know is that if you snore, your chances of sleep apnea go up dramatically, right? So, and actually, I've been experimenting with this new app called Shut Eye, and it actually is different than the other tracking devices like the Whoop Band, the
Yeah,
Aura Ring, the Fitbits of the
Fitbit.
world, right? The Apple Watch, right? And what's neat about this simple app, I think it's like $50 for the year, and it tracks the sound in your room and your snoring.
Oh
So,
wow.
if you think that you don't have sleep apnea, you go, oh yeah, that's BS. Well, try this app that actually listens to you, and you go, holy mackerel, that's the way I sound. Maybe I should get this checked out. Or your
Yeah.
spouse or your wife, says you snore a lot, and then the husband says, no, I don't. No way, I don't snore a lot. Well, hey, try this app. and then you
Yeah.
can actually hear yourself, and it'll measure the decibels. You go, and then it'll give you a ranking on if you have a low risk of sleep apnea or a higher risk. But sleep apnea, I mean, essentially, in the middle of the night, you actually stop breathing,
Oh, wow.
right? So you can affect your heart. Your heart, your heart may become irregular in the way it beats. So with my AFib, I've got to get down a little bit deeper. I've got a lower risk of sleep apnea right now because I'm wearing a snore guard.
Oh,
But
wow.
but you know what? Maybe that's not even enough, right? So I definitely have to get a sleep study, and who knows? Maybe I need to get a CPAP machine to give constant pressure. The big ugly machine with the
Yeah.
and basically it regulates the pressure in your the way that you breathe right through your nose, your mouth, and all the way down your trachea, right? So
Wow.
it keeps the airways open, right? So some people need that, and there's a number of different devices out there that can help with breathing
Yeah.
as well. And then some people they've got I actually a friend of mine's a dentist, and he actually had some surgery, and had some laser surgery in his throat area, and got some extra flaps around the mouth, in the side of your mouth, near inside your throat. So they carved it out with laser, um, and actually got his sinuses cleaned out as well, and made sure that the flow of air through the nasal passages were clear.
Oh,
So
wow.
that helped him out quite a bit with his snoring. And
Wow.
he doesn't he you know I've roomed with him on golf trips. He doesn't snore any longer, right? He's
Yeah.
he's sleeping much better, right?
Oh,
So
so there's different surgeries or different things and different ways of
yeah,
kind of being proactive. But let's just bring it back to just sleep in general. How
yeah,
can someone show up better for sleep? I know you introduced me to actually this one tactic. I don't know if you remember. It
yeah.
was the 3-2-1.
Yeah, it's very, very simple, and it's out there, right? A lot of coaches talk about 3-2-1, from the Ben Greenfields of the world, right? Um, yeah, yeah. So really, the idea is 3 hours before your bedtime. So let's say I'm shooting to go to bed by 10 p.m. So by 7 o'clock, 3 hours before, no more food, right? And you think about it, if you got food in your gut right near bedtime, the blood and your body is working, right? So
Yes.
it's on. It's not resting. It's working to digest your food instead of just relaxing and getting you ready for sleep, right?
Yes.
So snacking in the evening for most people not so good for sleep, right?
And
So
this is yeah, and this is a massive thing because I've had myself and some buddies where they might fast for a day and they'll literally get 100% recovery because their body doesn't have to focus on the food consumption. So, like
yes,
for myself, I try to eat earlier because think about it. If you stop eating at, I don't know, 7, 6, 5, mostly like 6, let's call it 6, and then you go to bed
yeah,
at 9, 10. That's 4 hours right there. Then you're gonna sleep another 6, 7, 8 hours. You're almost into a 12-hour fast without even trying, which is
yeah,
good for the purification of your body and it allows you to get better sleep.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So and the thing is you gotta test that out, and with the 3 hours, I would say alcohol, right? Like I don't drink a lot of alcohol, um and I know from doing I've tested out the Aura Ring and the Whoop Band and the Fitbit, and having one drink, right?
I've heard
So
this.
glass of wine, one beer, or one shot of whiskey or scotch, um, yeah, it disrupts my sleep by 20%. So my quality of sleep decreases by a minimum of 20% with one drink, right? So that's not great for longevity, right? It
Yeah,
ages you, right?
100%. So then you start to sit there and you're like, basically what ends up happening once you realize that, then it's the elimination of like, well, if I'm only gonna have one drink, what's the point of having a drink? You know what I mean? In which case,
Yeah,
then you can sit there and like eliminate that, and now you're gonna have a much better restful sleep. Because all we're talking about here are just habits and patterns. So, like,
yeah,
if we can break these habits down and keep them very simple rules, like if you follow the 3-2-1, which we'll get further into that, and then if you don't drink alcohol during the week and maybe drink on like Friday, Saturday, like your sleep's just gonna be better. You're gonna show
yeah,
up better, and you're gonna be now, I'm not saying that like the rules don't break from time to time, but it's just an awareness and an understanding that hey, I'm not
yeah,
gonna get a good sleep because I'm having this.
yeah, yeah. And you know what? I think one of the best things to do to prove to yourself that one drink affects your sleep is you can only improve something that you measure, right? So get your device out, get one of those devices, and all those, those devices, all three of those devices that I talked about, they are all good because they give you a baseline, and then you measure from your baseline, right?
Yes,
Right, and that's the
yes.
key, right? Because they all have their pros and cons, right? And they all work well. But now you got a baseline, and then you can see the changes or the delta that happens with your sleep. And you can test it with supplements. You can test it with changing one variable, and you go, oh, yeah, that affects my sleep. So when I started taking magnesium bisglycinate in the evening on a regular basis, my sleep improved by 10 to 20%
Oh wow.
using magnesium, for example. So I tested it, and I was surprised, right?
Yeah.
So I tested out one variable, right? But back to the 2 hours, um, you know, and then yeah, 3 hours before, no food, no drink. And I understand. I mean, you're gonna have a drink every now and then, but during the week, when you got to go to work the next day and you got to be on top of your game, maybe you shouldn't have that drink, or just wait till Friday to have those beers with
I
your
mean, you'll
buddies,
show up better. You'll show up
right?
better.
Right. And then 2 hours before sleep, um, with the best of your abilities, not to be on screens, because the blue light that we get from screens and the light that you get in your house could really affect your sleep, right? So dimming the lights is
Yeah,
important. Having blackout curtains, can really
100%.
help. Wearing Blu-ray blocker sunglasses helps as well. So if you're on the computer, get yourself a $50 to $100 Blu-ray blocking glasses in the evening, and then that'll
Yeah,
help, right? Because that Blu-ray hitting your eyes is a stimulus. It tells your
yeah,
body that you should be awake, right?
100%.
Meanwhile, you want to calm down, right? You want to cool down, right?
So I was actually just looking up the 3-2-1 online, and it said that the three was no food or drink. The
Yeah,
two was actually no work, and then the one was no screens. So
yeah.
I just yeah,
Yeah. I go.
flip
I
flop.
try to get off the screens as soon as possible, right? So, yeah. Some people will interchange those, right?
Yeah,
But definitely the work,
it
right?
should be the
So
3-2-2.
both of them. Yeah. Maybe it
The
should be
three
three,
two
two,
two.
two, right? Because if you're working and your brain is racing before you go to bed, what's the likelihood of you actually going to bed rested? right?
Yes, absolutely.
So,
And the other thing about sleep is that's just one tip. Or is there any other tips that you have for sleeping or sleeping
oh
optimally?
gosh, there's probably, there's probably about 50 variables that
Oh, wow.
I've investigated myself, you know, and it depends too, right? Like when I took my DNA test, I was suboptimal for sleep.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so genetically, I've got to make sure my circadian rhythm is on track, which means
Yeah.
that, going to bed at a regular time and getting up at a regular time, I really need to do that because my body does not adapt well when my circadian rhythm is off,
Yes.
right? So that affects me even more than a person that has an optimal circadian rhythm gene, right? And for me,
Okay.
that's good to know, right? So being consistent with bedtime, being consistent with waking up is really important.
Well, I think regardless of who you are, that
Yeah.
is one of the biggest hacks because for me it was always if you don't keep it, 'cause obviously you break rules sometimes, right? Like if you're traveling or stuff comes
Yeah.
up or you're hanging out. But if you can realistically stay at the same wake up time,
Yeah.
super beneficial. Like super,
Yeah.
super beneficial.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, um, that's I think that consistency is really important, and I love what Dr. Andrew Huberman talks about, the neuroscientist from Stanford. When you get up in the morning, we talked about morning routines and seeing, I've tested this. Getting up when the sun gets up so that your eyes, the cells in your eyes, receive that morning light. And
Yeah.
it's so refreshing, right? It
Yes.
just wakes me up and sets my circadian rhythm. And that's really important. I really enjoy doing that because I
Yeah.
feel much better when I do, right? And that's one of the reasons why I like golfing first thing in the morning in the summer because I get that morning sun,
Oh, that's awesome.
right? So I'm a member at a club right nearby my place, and getting a 7 o'clock tee off time means that I'm up
Yeah.
by 6,
And
right?
you're
Get that
seeing
morning
these
sun, and it all
absolutely.
packs in. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so, I mean, just back to the sleep, like, what is it that people can do to optimize their sleep? Or out of the 50 things you found, what were some of the best ones for you? Like, I know one of the big ones for me was, um, and it's kind of like everyone kind of talks about it. I feel like the cold room, like when the room's colder, you get a better sleep. I don't know the validity on that, but I've been hearing that a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. According to a lot of a lot of sleep experts, the two biggest variables are temperature and light.
Oh,
And,
wow.
yeah. So those are two things that you've got to negotiate with your partner, right?
Yeah.
So the temperature, ideally, it's 63 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's
Okay.
it's on the cooler side, right? So, a lot of women like to have it warmer, and guys generally like to have it cooler, right? So you
Yeah.
got to negotiate that, and hopefully your significant other can bundle up, right, on half of their bed, right, while we stay
Yeah.
cool. But that cool air, you think about it, when you're breathing that cool air, your body is more relaxed,
Yeah.
right? It's not when the air is too warm, you just feel a little bit more congested, right? And
Oh,
that's
really?
just
Okay.
that's just and your body reacts to that, right? You toss and turn, when you're too warm,
Yeah.
right? And you're likely not going to sleep as well.
Okay. I just
Yeah.
I bring this up because I'm so impressed about how aware you are about what certain variables affect you. And then I started to realize it because as you're eating different stuff, as you're sleeping, as you start to become more astute. And
Yeah.
like you mentioned, one of the major things for everyone is measuring and monitoring this stuff. You can't
Yeah.
improve what you don't know. So if
Yeah.
you could put on one of
Yeah.
these trackers, and
Yeah.
just for, even if you don't want to track your steps and all that kind of stuff, but
Yeah.
even just tracking your sleep, because what ends up happening is like you kind of gamify it to figure out like,
Yeah.
how do I get better sleep? How do I think about this? And like
Yes.
Fitbit literally just offered a 6 month free Fitbit Pro, like whatever it
Yeah.
is. Like a
Yeah.
lot of stuff isn't that much money. Like it's a good
Yeah.
way to know what's going on.
Yeah. And back to the temperature thing is, and there's some great products out there, right? Where you can get a cooling mattress. So for example, let's say your significant other wants it warm, so you can get a cooling mattress, and you can move the temperature so it's more precise for you. That's probably going to be 63 to 68 degrees so that you're cool, right?
Yeah.
And you can have it on your side of the bed. So that could actually save a marriage, right? You like it you like it cold, and she likes it a little bit warmer, right? So there are solutions to the sleeping thing. But what I found too is that getting a good foam mattress for me, and you've got to test it out for yourself, but it wicks the heat off. Like a good foam mattress, I don't get as hot with a good
Yeah.
foam mattress, right? And that makes a huge difference. And actually, I've tested different sheets, right? So I like the bamboo sheets because
Yeah.
if you're sweating, the cotton doesn't dry out well. It doesn't wick the moisture well.
Yeah.
And I found the bamboo feels cool all the time. It's quite
Yeah.
remarkable, right?
Yeah.
So, figuring that out for yourself, what your preference is. But I think if you haven't tried bamboo sheets, and bamboo sheets are wonderful, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And there's different like
Another,
thread counts, and you can get softness, and there's so many
yeah,
things. And a lot of people think it's BS, but when you really sit there and think about it, just as an individual, this
yeah,
is where I'm going to spend 8 hours a day or 6 hours a day or
yeah,
whatever it is.
yeah,
You spend so much time. Most people have these cars that they barely, like they'll go in the car for 20 minutes a day, 40 minutes a day. Like, you know what I mean?
yeah,
And we'll spend more on that than we do the
yeah.
bed, which is kind of a fascinating concept when you do the comparison.
Oh yeah, and there's so much to talk about, right? Like, so as you get older, you probably don't have this issue, Jordan, but after you're over 40, just say, right? And you might get this, acid reflux, gas, and things like that. And there's actually a simple solution. You don't have to go buy a $10,000 Tempur-Pedic bed that moves up and down. The head goes up, the feet goes up, and all that stuff, right? You could actually just put some books at the headboard on both sides and tilt the bed a couple of inches so that there is a slant, there's a slope from your head to your toe, and that'll help keep your gastric juices flowing down,
Oh, wow.
right? And it's a very subtle, right? So you can do that as well. You can take, like some people like myself take betaine hydrochloride to manage that, and that works out really well for digestion, right? Because everything's connected, right? If your
There's
gut
definitely
is not,
levels. There's definitely levels to this,
yeah, we
the
could just go
depths
on
of,
forever, right? But it's interesting that just recently, I mean, I was really getting annoyed because I was getting up, so I'm 56, I'll be 57 soon, right? I'm getting up to go pee 2 or 3 times a night, but recently I've hacked it. Now I'm sleeping through the night like a baby now, which is great.
just by the bed lift, like just lifting the thing a little bit.
Well, doing that, the temperature. I mean, some people need to wear earplugs because you might be, if you're a little sensitive to sound,
Yeah.
right? And that might disturb your sleep. So you got to figure this out, right? So hopefully we inspire people to take charge of your sleep, and you got to figure this out, right?
Just
It's
become
a puzzle,
aware of it. Yeah, there's
right?
literally nothing to sell here. That's the other thing. There's literally nothing. It's
Yeah,
just all awareness on like
yeah,
how
yeah.
do you
So
think about sleep? Is your pillow good? Is your
yes,
sheets good? Is your comforter? Is the blanket? Is all
yeah,
of it? Because all
yeah,
of it's variable.
yeah, exactly. Like if you're a tactile person, right, and your sheets aren't smooth, and you get little pills, like little cotton, like let's say your sheets aren't great sheets. They don't have a high thread count, like 800 or 1,000, or they're not bamboo, and they're little pilly. Just that can really affect your sleep because it's annoying you. It's just pissing you off all night, and maybe you're not even aware of it, right? You're going, geez, I didn't sleep well, So some people are very sensitive to that. Well, you gotta, try bamboo sheets, right?
Yeah. And you don't even know where you're going to end up. Like, you don't know what this impact can change because when people
Yeah,
get good sleep, then they start showing up differently to things. They're not as
yeah.
upset or
Oh,
irritated, and everything kind of changes.
yeah, absolutely. Another big variable for me is caffeine. I'm very sensitive to caffeine, so I cannot have a dark chocolate or anything like a coffee or even a strong tea after 3 p.m.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. 3 p.m. is sort of like my cutoff point, right?
Yeah.
So it's got to be a decaf tea. I don't drink a lot of coffee anymore because it actually creates stress in the body, right? It actually raises your cortisol levels up, right?
Oh, actually, wow.
Yeah, yeah. So you got to be, like a couple of days, I think is good. But anyways, like yeah. So for after dinner, I'll have a decaffeinated tea for digestion, right? It'll help calm you down, right? Because like a peppermint tea, right? Decaf teas, like peppermint, will have L-theanine in it.
Yeah.
So that's a nice organic substance that helps you to calm down, right? So
Yeah.
having like the magnesium bisglycinate before bed in a calming tea,
So
right? It
pretty
really
much,
helps prepare the body for sleep.
pretty much what I'm taking out here is that a lot conventional wisdom and conventional ways of doing things can be good or can be challenged. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And it's kind of like this idea of how do we optimize for the best experience we can in regard to
Yeah.
the sleep.
Yeah.
And by listening to what saying, because sometimes after a meal, they're like, do you, I mean, I was just in Europe, so they're like, oh, do you want an espresso? And I'm like, it's 10 p.m. No, I don't want an espresso. I'm good.
Yeah.
Because
And some people don't react to caffeine. So
yeah,
some people can handle the caffeine and it gets processed really well through their body and they can go to bed, right? But a lot of us we can't handle it. It's just it's very potent, right?
100%. And it's the tolerance. So my point being here is that I don't want this to be like something's good or something's bad or something's right or wrong. It's just how do we optimize for where we're at? So if we've never even thought about sleep and we're at a two, what are some of the easy wins we could do outside of what we brought up, temperature, bedding, all of that stuff? Are there any other easy wins you think people could get?
Yeah, yeah. I think, I mean, you know, if you exercise, that helps with
Okay.
sleep, right? And it kind of makes sense, right? You've taxed your body, and it could be a 20-minute walk, right? So
Yeah.
some kind of exercise is going to help with sleep, right? And what I
Yeah.
mean by that is throughout the day, right? Now, some people can exercise in the evening and then they're okay. They can fall asleep. But a lot of us, it's a stimulant. Exercise stimulates the body, you know, and you're getting the adrenaline flowing, right? You might be
Yeah.
getting the dopamine up, the oxytocin, the endorphins. And I cannot do a workout in the evening because those endorphins and adrenaline will be in my body for about 3 hours.
Oh, wow.
So I will not be able to go to sleep, right? For 3 hours after I work out. So if I worked out at 10 p.m. and I tested this, right? Probably by 1:30, I might be able to start falling asleep.
Oh, wow.
And that's just the way my body is, right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, no, I hear that. I've usually been a morning person just because I think you attack the day, it just you show up better. And plus, if you're gonna get that energy, why not have it in the beginning of the day?
Yeah,
Um, or the
yeah,
middle of the day?
yeah,
The end of the day never really, I don't know, I just never got into it really.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. And
but
there's a couple of a couple other things that really help as well. And it's counterintuitive, like a hot shower before bed, right? So this is the theory, right? So you take a hot shower, not only it's calming and it's relaxing, right? So when you get out of the shower, your body is too hot. So what does the body do? The body needs to cool down. So there's an automatic response to cool your body down. So the water evaporates from your skin, takes heat away from your skin.
oh wow.
That evaporation process takes heat away. So it's an exothermic reaction, right? Evaporation. And then it's cooling your body down before bed. So it's actually a good way, just like how, I've had 3 kids, right? Bath time before bed is very
Yeah.
soothing, right? Calms them down and cools them down for bed. So that really helps. And then obviously reading a book, right?
Yeah.
Getting a book really helps with the
Yeah.
bedtime routines, right? And just like when we were kids, if our parents read us, it we have this neural pathway that's been developed for years and years. And if your parents read books before bedtime and you had the bath, this neural pathway is there. We could get back on it and fall asleep really well, right?
Yeah. And you're bringing up a very good point. So a lot of us have a morning routine, but do we have a bedtime routine? And
Yeah,
what does that look like? And
yeah,
how do we think about that? Because a lot of people are like, I talk to a lot of people, and a lot of them are like, yeah, like when I want to go to bed at 11, say I'm going to go to bed at 10, like I want to change it up, go to bed at 10, I'll just mosey on into my room at like 10:15. And it's like, no, it takes you like an hour to get to sleep and you have to be
that's
prepared to sleep. So now it's like, let's
you're
at
right.
least get in the room, brush your teeth, relax, not
Yeah,
have to do anything and like kind of simmer down and slow down what you're doing because we're in such a chaotic environment. So
yeah,
chaotic. And
yeah,
everyone's wants to be doing more than the other person, and we're super doers, and we're all doing 100,000 things. And
yeah,
it's like, how do we slow down and do one thing and
yeah,
focus on
yeah,
that one thing
yeah.
and
That's
get
a great
present with
point.
it?
That's a great point. I mean, here's another variable, is these naps, right? So some of us are fortunate to be able to take a nap in the afternoon. If you're working from home or you're
Yeah.
doing your own business, right? Not everyone has that, luxury. But if you do, you know, most of the experts are going to talk about, those naps being 20 to 30 minutes maximum.
Yeah.
So they can be very, very helpful. But what I've found with me, anyways, is if I have a nap that's longer than that,
Yes.
that's not helpful for
Yeah.
sleep.
Because you get
Right?
too deep. You get too deep. I felt the same thing. Yeah,
Right?
the
Right?
10 the like
Yeah.
the under 20 minutes is ideal.
Yeah.
Anything more than 20 minutes, you're playing with fire.
Yeah. And if I'm not, let's say I didn't have a great night's sleep and I feel like I need a nap, but I can't go to sleep in the afternoon. So I'll do a meditation or I'll use the Newcom device. That's something else that we can talk about in another podcast, in another chat, is a Newcom device. And it really brings you into this theta brainwave state.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
and that theta brainwave is, let's say it's less than 10 millihertz or whatever, the 4 to 10. It's very calming. It's that state where you're almost asleep, and you're very relaxed. So this device helps you to get into that meditative state like very quickly. So it's a great device for people that can't meditate or have challenges meditating. And it just relaxes you so much and gets your heart rate variability to an optimal place so that you're calm, your nervous system is calm, and you're in the parasympathetic part of the nervous system and not the stressful, sympathetic nervous system is firing up.
Yeah, and that's another tool. The sound waves. I've heard about
Yes,
that where people use
yes,
sounds to,
yes. Yep, absolutely. There's a lot of apps out there.
or even on YouTube, like you can look up sound, like white noise
Exactly.
sounds or whatever it is. And
Yeah. And a lot of it's free, right? On YouTube, or, you got an app. Um,
it,
these work, right?
it's really how do you create that nighttime environment to sleep and then to rise the next day so that you're ready to go and do these different
Yeah.
things? Because a lot of us have very stressful lives. A lot of us have a lot going on, and a lot of us have a lot of challenges. So
Yeah.
why are we putting ourselves through the challenges each day when we sleep? It's
Yeah.
like, let's overcome this. Let's figure out a way. So
Yeah.
is there anything else you would throw in there, like that you think the audience must do to optimize the sleep or the nighttime routine component?
Yeah. Yeah. But I think what helps me out, and lots of apps also would recommend this, is doing 15 minutes of stretching, right?
Really?
Well,
I
you
didn't
think
know that.
about it. Most of us are sitting way too long, right?
Yes.
So our hamstrings need to get stretched. Our hamstrings start to get really tight. So you think about it, you have tight hamstrings, and now you got a lower back that's not in an optimal position, right? So now your chances of pulling something in your lower back goes up, right? And you're yeah. So you're maybe you've got tech neck, and you're not in a good position for your computer, or you're doing this with your iPhone, right? You're doing this kind of stuff, right? And now our posture is basically deformed,
Yeah.
right? So we're tight. And if you're tight before going to bed, your body isn't relaxed. So during sleep, your body's trying to relax, but it can't because you're too tight.
Yes.
And it's trying to get comfortable into this comfortable position, and there's this uneasiness of the body. So doing some stretching can really help you out if you're tight.
Absolutely. I mean, as you mentioned that, it was kind of funny. So when you go on an airplane, like the little tip on the airplane is every hour you're supposed to do like 20 air squats.
Yeah,
And you start to realize that like people will sit in offices for 8 hours straight, and it's like, go for a walk, man. Like,
yeah,
or just take your phone with you. Like, just do what you got to do, but like,
yeah,
don't sacrifice your health just for one extra dial or whatever it is. Because
yeah,
the thing is, like, you need that. You only have one body. Don't disrespect it. So I'm actually, I don't know if you realize it right now, but I'm actually at a standing desk. Like I have a desk that goes
yeah,
up and down. So
yeah,
I'm standing. So I stand during the podcast because it
yeah,
allows me to just show up better. And then
yeah,
two, it's just you give your legs a break. Because when
yeah,
they're sitting there, it's not in a good place. And
yeah,
it's just you gotta realize you only have one body, and it's how do you treat that body with respect
yeah,
so that it can last the longest. And
yeah.
some of
I
these
love
ways
that.
to do, yeah, you have to
Yeah,
to.
Yeah, and
It's
I'm glad
missed
you
too
brought
much.
up the standing desk, right? We do have to change that position because we sit way too long, and it has a lot of unintended consequences, you
A
know?
hundred. And the
Uh,
other thing I want to note is this Amazon standing desk I ordered like maybe $150,
yeah,
probably like $100. And
yeah,
the
yeah,
thing is, to upgrade our things is
yeah,
so minuscule in comparison to like what we really think it is to change. You know what I mean? It
yeah,
doesn't it's just the intentionality of what you're doing. And if you could just be a little more intentional. So
yeah,
my hope from this podcast is that something causes you to be more intentional about your sleep, whether it's you wearing a Fitbit or you making it colder at night or you eating 3 hours before bed, like any of these. I hope one of these tips really lands because it helps you optimize what you're trying to do.
yeah, yeah. Oh, 100%, and we're just hitting the tip of the iceberg, right? And I think it's important for our audience to know that is that we're all different, and you got to discover these things for yourself, and you got to test and see what works for yourself and what doesn't work. And and if you're not feeling refreshed after sleep, on most days, yeah, get a sleep test. um that's something that is going to be good for you. And then maybe you need some kind of appliance, whether if it's an oral appliance, whether it's a CPAP machine or something. But we need to sleep in a good way because it's restorative, right?
A
We
hundred
need
percent.
to,
And yeah, and it's not even like I think is sometimes it can be we're like, oh, worst case scenario, how do we go from a 1 to a 10? It's not even that. It's like you might be at a 5 or a 6 and might be like, I don't think this is anything. But if you can get to a 7 or 8, now you're showing up better in society and now you're not being as irritable to people. And now
yeah,
we're like
yeah,
helping our people around us and not so like it's all about me. You know what I mean? Because these little
yeah,
things affect us. And like
yeah,
the other major thing about sleep that we didn't really mention is like when you're angry, like I think gratitude is one of the best things because like when you're grateful, it calms you down. And I actually did
yeah,
this incredible exercise with my group this week, both groups actually, where we talked about there was this guy and he basically talked about the five senses of gratitude. And it was like, what's your seeing gratitude? What's your hearing gratitude? Your taste, your touch, and
yeah,
your smelling gratitude. And you have moments for each of those. And it's just this incredible experience when you go through it because you pick a specific moment, like so seeing. It might be me on the beach as I'm on my knee, like getting engaged. You know what I mean? And you get this
yeah,
like warm, fuzzy feeling in your heart. And you do this for all five of them. And you sit there and you're like, whoa, like I feel really good right now. And like if you do that before bed, you're going to show up better and not be worried about the one person who might have talked bad about you or the one person who hung up on you or your friend argument or anything. Like you got to
yeah,
get yourself clear and conscious and realize like I am going to bed. I'm excited for this experience. Because
yeah,
when your mind's moving too much, that's why you got to do some of these exercises to prep it and kind of tone it down.
yeah, 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 100%, right? Like I think, most of us, and I'm super aware of this, but by all means, I am not perfect at sleep. I mean, I do the best I can, and every day is different. But I think for most of us, we don't need we don't need all the stimulation prior to sleep, whether if it's, working, whether if it's social media, because, sometimes I get caught in the evenings with social media. And that's why I think like reading a book, prior to bed forces you to get off the phone and social media, because that in itself stimulates the brain, because these algorithms are to give you dopamine hits, and those dopamine hits probably will keep you awake a little bit longer than you should,
A
right?
hundred percent. A hundred
So
percent.
So it's sort of like you've got to exchange this phone that we have access to with something else,
Yeah.
right? It's like a smoker, right? You give us, a smoker needs something to do with their hand. So if you take a smoker and you get rid of the cigarette and you give them a little, what do you call those little, um, what do you call those little things? Those little twirly things to use your
Oh,
hands
the
occupied.
fidget spinners. Yeah, the
Yeah,
fidget
that those
spinners.
little spinners, right?
Yeah.
And it keeps their fingers occupied. So you get rid of the one bad habit, and then you insert a positive habit or a neutral habit, right? So get rid of the phone and exchange it with a book, and
Yes.
actually maybe it's a boring book and it'll help you to get to bed faster. Encyclopedia,
Or
whatever.
or maybe it's a good book and now you're learning more and like you can wake up and you have these new ideas ready for the day. Because
Exactly.
the thing is that we're having positive outputs or positive inputs because the inputs
Yeah.
we take in, we have to be deciding on them and intentional on them. So,
Yeah.
you guys listening to this podcast today, that's a positive input. I appreciate that. Saying
Yeah.
appreciates it. And that's how we optimize what we're trying to do here.
Yeah.
So, I would highly recommend everyone optimize for your sleep, optimize for what you're trying to accomplish today, because you have to realize that it's not just your day to day and your actions, but it's how you show up every single day. So, saying, is there anything else you want to leave with the audience?
Well, I think, there's a lot there. I would encourage you to, implement one or two of the things that we talked about. Become super aware of what affects your sleep. Usually there's one or two things that are bothering you, and maybe there's some strategies for you to get more calm before sleep. And it could be a meditation, it could be a book, or it could be a warm shower. And I think we've got enough ideas here, and I encourage people to do some more research on sleep too, because and then you're invested, and
Yes.
think about what your life would be like if you had great sleep every day. Like, look at all the things you could do and all the people you would meet and connect with, and maybe you want to grow your business, or maybe you want a new relationship, or whatever you want, right? Without the deep sleep and the REM sleep, right? What can you really accomplish? Maybe you're at a functioning at 60, 70%. What if you were functioning at 80, 95%,
Yeah.
100%? What's possible for you?
Yeah. I love that. And it really is. It's just one action could change your entire way of going about your life. So I really hope you guys got some value in this. And I'm excited to see what we come up with next. Saying thank you so much for coming on. It's always a pleasure. And we will talk very soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Bye for now.